Hi guys, welcome to Wheels World, and today we are taking a step away from the wrestling area, but we are taking a ride down memory lane. Now, I don't know how many people may have watched this or not, but today I am looking at pop vinyls from the land before time. Now, I have every single Land Before Time film ever made. I think there was 14 or 13 films made altogether. Then they started doing a series, but the series didn't really, I didn't really get gripped by the series. But then again, by the time the series had come about, I was probably in high school, had a girlfriend, and you know, that kind of stuff. So the first up on the pop vinyls of the Land Before Time, it has to be Sharptooth, which was the bad guy T-Rex in the Land Before Time. It was a kids programming and everything, and I loved anything to do with dinosaurs and stuff like that. And Land Before Time was one of my favourite film series ever. It's a shame that they actually stopped in the end. It was a Steven Spielberg, I'm sure it was Steven Spielberg that made it. So, Sharptooth, the T-Rex from Land Before Time. The head actually doesn't move, so you've got to look at it like that. It's absolutely brilliant. I love this, although it's got a mark on the tail. It's got a white mark on the tail. It doesn't look like it'll come off neither. No, it might come off, but then again, you wouldn't see it very often. You wouldn't see it anyway. But yes, that's Sharptooth from the Land Before Times film series. I always remembered watching the very first one, and I never really, because I was a kid, I never really clicked on with it as to what it was on about. But the story near the beginning was Littlefoot. His mum, I don't know whether she'd been attacked in it by one of these, by Sharptooth, or whether she'd just become ill, and she unfortunately ended up dying and leaving Littlefoot on his own. Well, technically he wasn't on his own because he had his nan and granddad. But it was quite an emotional beginning to Land Before Time, because the whole story was they were going to go to the Great Valley, and the Great Valley would give them everything they need to survive, basically. Water, trees, plants that they would eat, because obviously Littlefoot was a long neck. I can't remember what they are actually called in the proper dinosaur world. So yeah, you can imagine it was quite an emotional film at the beginning. But we've got Sharptooth. Next up, I'll go with Littlefoot, because I've just been telling you the little backstory of the Land Before Time start. So Littlefoot, he was a long neck dinosaur. They just called him long neck in that film. he had his little friends, which were Spike, Petrie, Cera, and Ducky. I am on the hunt for Ducky. It's the only one I haven't found so far. She's the only one, I think it's a she, but Ducky is the only one I haven't found of the Land Before Time pop vinyls. So this is Littlefoot. He's so cute, isn't he? He was cute, but he was a bit of a mad ass as well. But I loved the films of Land Before Time, and Littlefoot was probably one of my favourite characters. I think Ducky actually ended up my favourite character. Oh no, Spike. Spike ended up being my favourite character because whenever there was something bad going to happen, he wouldn't run away. He'd just go, just slam his head into the floor, and it would go into the ground. That's all he ever did. I just saw his head just go into the ground. That's it. That was him hiding. But yes, Littlefoot. Now the story behind Spike. He was actually a spike tail. But Ducky and I think Petrie actually found him in a bush on his own, still in his egg. He hadn't hatched with all the others, and I think the parents had abandoned him, and he ended up getting pretty much adopted by Ducky's family, which were, are they called Dilophosaurus? Dilophosaurus dinosaurs? I can't remember what they're bloody called. But Spike was always so funny, but he was so cute as well. He was really, really so cute, and he didn't speak. All you ever got out of him was oh. That's all you ever got out of That's all you ever got out of Spike. He couldn't talk, so he was. I suppose, in a way, you could say he was possibly disabled a little bit. He may very well have been. If you were classifying it now, you would probably classify him as probably autistic, because I've got a cousin that's autistic, and she's never spoke a word in her life. So I would say that he was pretty much like an autistic kind of dinosaur. It was never really said that was the case. Obviously, because films back then, they didn't go into all this stupid medical jargon that everybody likes to try and delve into these days, and think that they know something and they don't. But Spike was a really funny character, and I remember when I can't remember which one it was. I think he started following a load of spike tails, because I think another spike tail came into it as like same age as him, but it was a female, and I think he was going to follow them, but then I think, if I remember rightly, he looked back at Ducky, Littlefoot, Cera, and all that. And he realised they were all his friends. He's known them since his birth. And he was just trying to join a tribe that was pretty much didn't really want him. But yeah, Spike, he was one of my favourite characters. He even sort of walked with pigeon-toed as well. He walked like that rather than normal. So Spike was really, really cool. Petrie was a pterodactyl. I think they just called them flyers in Land Before Time, but he was a pterodactyl. I'm just trying to find somewhere to put everything, because I have to say I'm doing all these in the one video. So Petrie, who is a flyer, you get him on a stand so that he's sort of floating. That's really cool, isn't it? Look at that. I love that. I really do love that. Petrie is really, really good. I remember one of the films. I don't know whether it was The Great Migration, Land Before Time, Great Migration, or whether it was something else. But all the long necks thought that they needed to save the planet, and basically the sun was setting, kind of thing, but they thought they had to hold the sun in the air to stop darkness. I don't understand how that really happened, or how that really came about, for the simple fact that they'd had nighttime and daytime in previous films. I can't remember the plot properly as to why they were doing it, but they thought the Earth was going to end, so the long necks all went to this certain spot, and they all lifted their heads up as far as they could get them, and thought they were holding the sun in the air and keeping it away from coming down to Earth and destroying it. Really, it's strange. It's a bit of a strange one, really, that one, but it was what it was. So, yes, Petrie, the flyer, I think he became friends with Ducky first. I think him and Ducky really become friends. Now Cera, on the other hand, she was a bit of a sass master. She was a bit of she was grumpy. She was she based on she's a Triceratops, which obviously has got the name Cera in it. She was a Triceratops. She would always think that she knew best, and majority of the time it turned out no. Just because you're a woman, you don't know best. But no, she didn't always know best, and eventually she would end up having to apologise to Littlefoot and everybody. They were always having arguments, but that's kids for you. But Cera, she was always very bossy and a bit horrid to other dinosaurs. I remember Chomper came into it, who ironically turned out to be a baby of one of the Sharptooth, and she kept trying to push him away, because she knew that if he got too close, the Sharptooths were going to end up coming after them. She made sense in that respect, but in another respect, nobody knew what Sharptooths were his parents. So I really did love Land Before Time. Now Ducky Ducky, which is the one I haven't got yet, and I'm on the hunt for. She, as I said, she or he, I can't remember whether it's, I think it's a she. She always had the if something was going how it should be, she used to always shout, "Yep, yep, yep." Yeah, I used to do it all the time as well. Yep, yep, yep. But she always looked after Spike, and she was the one that took Spike under her wing, along with Littlefoot, Petrie, and Cera. They all became friends at birth. But like I say, poor Spike was pretty much abandoned in the film. Quite sad, really, because he was probably the cutest of the bunch, to be fair. But yeah, it was a really cool film. Well, it was a cool film series, should I say. So, if you haven't watched it, and if you've got some kids that like dinosaurs, but you don't really want to show them Jurassic World or Jurassic Park yet, this is a better way. These were good films to be able to show them, because it sort of gave you a bit of education in the films as well, as to rights from wrongs and what you should do and what you shouldn't do and things like that. They were good films. So unfortunately, until I can get Ducky, I am one pop vinyl off completing the Land Before Time series, unless obviously they bring more out. But so far they are the ones that have been released, and it is that one that I am missing, Ducky. So I am on the hunt for that at some point. So hopefully further down the line we will have Ducky, and we will talk a bit more about Land Before Time. So until then, I've got a bunch of little dinosaurs here that have got to be displayed somewhere. Until next time, I'm out.